The viewpoints expressed on Night Fright are not necessarily those of the host, the staff, the sponsors, or the affiliate stations. Tonight's program may contain graphic themes or images. Viewer discretion is advised.
There is a time for question. There is a time for answers. There is a time to challenge. There is a time to speculate. There is a time for change. There is a time for truth. The time is now. Welcome to Night Fright, your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy. And now your host, Brent Holland.
Showtime! Welcome to the show. I'm Brent Holland, and welcome one and all to Night Fright. Tonight, folks, get the coffee going, get the tea going, get a beverage of your choice going, settle back in your most comfy chair. Because if we got a show for you, our guest tonight is John Ventre. I almost said Jean. Many of you will recognize our guest tonight because John is indeed a star on the hit History Channel series on UFOs called Hangar 1. John is also the state director for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. John has also appeared on many other Discovery and History Channel productions, both in the United States and here in Canada as well. He's recently appeared on the Anderson Cooper Show to discuss some sightings that took place over Pennsylvania, where, of course, John is the MUFON director. And we're going to get into that tonight, folks. Don't worry. And it seems the Anderson Cooper Show didn't like what they had, so they took some, shall we say, liberties with the editing.
Yes, they did.
It's my great pleasure to welcome John to the show for the very first time, but definitely not the last. John, welcome to Night Fright. And how goes Hangar 1, by the way?
Good, pretty good. It debuts in 2 weeks or less than that, February 13th. In about 10 days, it comes on episode 1 on H2.
Fantastic. What's the first episode? Can you give us a little bit of a synopsis just to entice people to tune in?
You know, they didn't give us the order, so,
so
I don't know. I don't know what the first episode's going to be. I know I'm in 9 of the 12. Last year there were 8 episodes. This year 12. And the cast increased from, it was 8 people last year to 18 this year. Wow. So there'll be a lot more faces in the show.
What were some of the things that you covered personally for the show, both last year and this year?
Well, I'll tell you what, though. Last year we covered a lot of the well-known cases. I think every episode, it was kind of historical, and everybody would recognize most of the 8 episodes. Where this year, when I got the outline, I said to myself, I think I recognized one case out of the 12, episodes. But it turned out to be really cool because these are good cases that never got the publicity, but they have a lot of details. So when the show, reenacts it and gives you everything, you realize this is as good as Betty and Barney Hill. This is as good as Roswell. These are good cases.
Now, listen, when does the show air? What time and when?
Yeah, 9 o'clock. Well, in the U.S., it's 9 o'clock on Friday, February 13th on H2, History's H2.
Okay, so February 13th, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I wonder if there'll be any Templars watching. Anyways, moving right along. This is a bad joke, I guess. Yeah. Too soon?
Well, they don't like Friday, April 13th.
Oh, yeah, that was, yeah, absolutely. Okay, John, I know also you're a member of something that's called the FBI's InfraGard group. Can you tell us exactly what the heck that is and what your responsibilities are?
Well, I'm retired now, but when I was working, I was head of security and public affairs, state director for UPS. And in Pittsburgh, I was a member of the InfraGard group. And it's not as big as it sounds. It's really a bunch of corporate security and IT people that would meet quarterly and really talk about issues. Some of them were physical. I had physical security. I wasn't IT, but then they talked a lot about securing the network and stuff like that. But really, anybody who's in a management position in a city can join the InfraGard in their town.
Precisely, what do you do? Is it kind of like a community watch, or is this
what, the InfraGard?
Yeah.
Oh no, it was you'd have a meeting, and people from different companies would get together with the FBI. They would talk about issues that were out there. When we had the G20 come to Pittsburgh, we talked about that for months. And it'd be all different types of cyber attacks and what to do with your network. And then, but mine was physical security, and that's what I told them. I'm an expert in physical security and interviews and interrogations.
Folks, if you're just joining us, John Ventre is our guest tonight. He is indeed the state director for MUFON of Pennsylvania. They're going to have a great time tonight, folks. Settle in, get that coffee going, get the tea going, get a beverage of your choice going. This is going to be one heck of a ride for us tonight. He's also the star of Hangar 1, which is going to be airing February 13th on History 2 at 9 o'clock in the evening. And that's, I suspect, Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You check your local listings, you'll find it for sure. And some brand new cases that they're going to be looking at, cases that people have never heard before. So it's going to be an exciting show without question. I'll be tuning in myself. John, let's talk about January 12th of this year. They just released Project Blue Book, all the files, quote unquote. And every time I speak of Project Blue Book, I have to tell you, John, right away I always default to the Warren Commission. Why is that?
It would be about as credible.
Okay, January 12th, they put all these files online. What's going on? Is there anything new that we don't already know or has suspected, or has there been, it's just, I don't know, some kind of an appeasement?
Well, the interesting thing I think that came out of it is, John Greenwald filed the Freedom of Information Act in 1996, and he got the files and everything, and he was told to take them down.
Why?
So they're not on the Black Vault anymore on his website. Well, it turns out that any military, I'm going to wonder now if this is some sort of a thing that the government's doing. Any military-related files, I don't know if it's the property or first dibs on it, goes to a website called Fold3. They're owned by Ancestry.com, and I guess they have an agreement with the government that any military-related records and files goes to this thing called Fold3. So since that was, Project Blue Book was military-related files, they got it. And now Greenwald had to take it down. I think he could fight it, but that would take a lot of money, and it's really not worth it. So it's not on Greenwald's site anymore. It's over on Ancestry. I guess, it's just historical, so it's Ancestry.com. But
wait, now I have to interject here. Now, Ancestry.com is a website, folks, in case you don't know what it is, where you can trace your lineage back over the generations. Now, is there a connection here? I'm being facetious a little bit, between putting the Project Blue Book alien files up here so you can really trace your heritage back?
I think they're going to figure a way. Yeah, for 1995, you can see if you're an extraterrestrial, if you got DNA in you from an ET.
Let me tell you.
That might be the angle. Who the heck knows?
I don't know. We have a bunch of them running around, I have to tell you, in Ottawa, except we call them Canadian politicians.
Yeah. But I tell you, though, so what? They released Project Blue Book. We knew mostly all the cases in there. There's been studies. I think people have already had access to these. James McDonald did a really good study, over the years. I know Stanton Friedman has a packet that he always put out on Project Blue Book. So, but, there's a couple of things. First, MUFON wants to thank Project Blue Book. Want to thank the Air Force for the way they bungled the UFO question, because it led to the creation of MUFON. We started in 1969 at the end of Blue Book when they said there was nothing to it, there's no threats to national security, lie, and that they were no longer going to investigate UFOs, another lie. So we formed, and now we got 3,500 members, 1,000 investigators. So we want to thank them for being dishonest and really passing it off to the CIA, which is what they did. But just so everybody knows, the cases that were the best cases, the ones that were a threat to national security, were not part of Blue Book. They
Which ones were
absolutely.
those, John, for people that are
Well,
unaware?
I'll give you some examples.
Thanks.
Would be the ones like 1967 when we had the UFOs over the military bases. So those type, I think it was Malmstrom, Minot,
That's right.
Loring. There was a bunch of them. Worth Smith, where it was like every couple of months you had a UFO hovering. The thing is opening up bay doors for missile silos. It's shutting down missiles that don't have a shut-off switch. And the crazy thing, there were two instances where they activated the missile, like to launch. I don't know where it was going, probably Soviet Union. And then another one, they changed the coordinates on it. Imagine that. And we had to stop it. So it was all maybe tests or trying to deter us from using nuclear weapons. But, they could have changed the coordinates on that to New York or D.C., and we would have blown up our own city. That stuff is not part of Blue Book. The 1965 power outage that started in Syracuse, New York, that's not part of Blue Book. And all of the cases where the UFOs were above these nuclear plants and power stations and stuff, that's not part of Blue Book. Like the Portage, Ohio case, we had police officers involved in that, and they absolutely, made those cops look like fools, where two of them quit the force, had like stress breakdowns in Ohio, Portage, Ohio. One went to Seattle, became a house painter. The other one he became a bus driver. The other one quit his job, lost his marriage, and became a house painter, and was living in like Motel 6, eating a ham sandwich every day. Really destroyed the guy's life because he felt he did what was right, But and it's a shame the way they did that with the police. They didn't even care with their own, Air Force pilots. If you reported a UFO, they went after you, discrediting their own pilots. They even in '54, which that would have been still part of Blue Book, the early years when Ruppelt was there. They had an agreement, and not a lot of people know this. And I don't know if this is in the Blue Book files. It certainly isn't in the Condon report. In '54, the Pentagon, the intelligence community, Pentagon, CIA, met with the airline industry. And they agreed to impose military restrictions on commercial pilots. Think about that. It's a fact. For 4 years, 1954 to '58, the rule was you can talk internally about seeing a UFO. You cannot go to the media. There can be no publicity on it, no reports made on UFOs. I mean, that alone tells you that this thing is real. And what they said was if you did go to the military, that you would be subject to espionage laws. 10 years in prison, $10,000 fine, immediate arrest, and I think it's even a military, the military court system is a lot different than, county jail. And, that's the reason the pilots don't report the UFOs.
Well, that's going to throw a muzzle over you very quickly, when you're facing that kind of deterrent.
Yeah. And what happened was in '58, we had the Killian case. He was a pilot flying from Newark, New Jersey to Detroit, and it was over Pennsylvania. And they saw UFOs and reported it, and they reported it to the press and all of that. And, then what happened was Blue Book. Well, I guess, yeah, it is part of that one in '58 is part of Blue Book, because Blue Book looked at it and came back and said, Captain Killian's a drunk. He was drinking before the flight. And this is a 30-year pilot with 100,000 hours, highly respected. He went ballistic when they said he was a drunk and they tried to ruin his reputation. And he told them, you know what, arrest me. And he held a press conference and everything, and the government didn't do anything. Matter of fact, they never, arrested or held the espionage laws against any commercial pilots, but it was that scare that was there. The same thing like the ET exposure law that was on the books for like 17 years, where if anything from space came down, it was like hazardous materials. You weren't allowed to touch it. You had to basically leave the area, call the police, not touch it. And again, it was if you did come in contact with anything extraterrestrial, and I think it even said, meteors, craft, anything from space and you touched it and went up to it, you would be immediately quarantined by NASA without a hearing, and you were again subject to like $5,000 fine and a year in prison. And, you know, the thing was they never prosecuted anybody because, you know, I think some clerk in the office there said, "Hey guys, we ever prosecute anybody?" You know, and they said no. And she goes, "Well, you realize if you prosecute them, this tells everybody that UFOs are real and ETs are real, right?" So they never. Then they dropped it. I think it was like it was on the books for 17 years. They dropped it, never prosecuted anybody. But again, it was the heavy hand to scare people. But, you know, people need to know that in 66, at the end of Blue Book, the last 3 years, that's the Blue Book report that's put out is the Condon Commission, you know. They paid basically $523,000 to, I think it was the University of Colorado where Condon was a professor. They paid them $523,000 really to debunk UFOs. That's what they did. The minute Condon took the position, he said that there's nothing to this. I don't know why we're wasting our time. 2 months later, that was June of 66, August of 66, the trick memo comes out by his project coordinator, Dr. Robert Lowe, puts a memo out to the staff of Blue Book telling everybody we have to trick the public into believing that we're investigating this while we're stacking the group with non-believers with no expectations of proving UFOs to be real. Well, what happened was one person or a clerical person made a copy and they leaked it because they knew. And this is where the whistleblowers should be praised. You know, not gone after as traitors. They should be praised because if it doesn't happen, this stuff will always get covered up. And what about General Bolender, who came out and said that the Air Force does investigate UFOs? The ones that were a threat, like the ones I mentioned to you, were not part of Blue Book. Everybody forgets about that. Why do we ignore what the general said? He even said it is investigated under JANIP 146 and Air Force Regulation 5511. You don't ever hear anybody but Stanton Friedman and myself ever quote that's the way they were investigating it. So,
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
What I find very perplexing, John, is the fact that, you know, the government shut it down and they virtually said that they couldn't find anything that they would consider, I'm just going to paraphrase essentially, the report ended with, they would consider a national security threat or anything that would be considered an extraterrestrial vehicle. Yet, we've, you know, one of the shows you did, I think the first show you did last year on Hangar 1 was exactly on that very subject, presidential sightings.
yeah.
So it's absolutely perplexing. On one hand, they're trying to shut this thing down. On the other hand, they've come forward. How do we deal with this situation when they seem to be at loggerheads? There's got to be something behind this.
Well, you know, and that's what convinces me that the UFO phenomenon's real. And I put that in my last book, An Alternative History of Mankind. The second half of the book is all the proof, the documents. You know, you have documents there from generals, the FBI, the CIA, politicians. All those documents are there talking about this. You know, do we say that Carter and Reagan were nuts because they saw UFOs? Salas over at Malmstrom? We're going to say the guy was nuts because he said they shut the missiles down? Well, you know what? That happened at almost every nuclear base. I guess they're staffed by nuts. But how come they haven't fired all these missiles and started World War III? Come on. I mean, there's something about this that is so, you know, like they said, above top secret. You know, like Timothy Good said, above top secret. That actually came from Barry Goldwater, not Timothy Good. That phrase, yeah, that's a Barry Goldwater phrase that it's above top secret.
I didn't know that. I know the president doesn't have the most top secret clearance in the United States. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. You know, and who was it that told, trying to think, was it Carter or Clinton? They told him, they told him that, you know, satisfying your curiosity is just not, you know, that's not a good enough reason. You don't need to know.
Yeah.
But, you know, the history of it was the Air Force, they didn't want to really get involved in UFO investigations. They wanted the Navy to do it. Which isn't really, maybe because half the cases are coming underwater where the UFOs are seen around water. I don't know what their reason, but they didn't want to
Well,
do
you
it.
mentioned Syracuse before, which is only an hour and a half south of us, where I'm in Kingston, Ontario, where we train our military guys here. It's kind of like West Point, if you will. But we're right
Okay.
on Lake Ontario, and the sightings here, they're phenomenal. I
Oh,
mean, every week there's a new sighting.
yeah, there's a ton of them. So, then you had Project Grudge. Initially the Project Sign came back very positive that these are extraterrestrial craft, and that was signed off by everybody until it got up to Vandenberg, and he tossed it and said, "This isn't the answer I was looking for." So they got rid of everybody on Project Sign, replaced it with Project Grudge, which was the Air Force. But the Air Force really wanted to tell the public. They didn't know how to. So they turned it over to the CIA, and the CIA said, "You can never tell the public about this. Are you nuts? You can never tell anybody." And they reaffirmed it in 1960 when I think it was NASA, it might have been the Air Force, but NASA asked the Brookings Institute in DC, what are the implications of extraterrestrial contact? It came back with a report that you can get the report, and it basically says that you can't tell the public. It would cause all kinds of chaos, the scientific community, the religious community. They said you can't tell the people, and you have to debunk the whole issue. So there's something to this that's above top secret, that's horrible maybe. I know it's about the military technology, the weaponization stuff, but maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's more than just the defense part of it.
The inception of Project Blue Book, we're talking about the beginning of the Cold War. It almost coincides with it perfectly. But there was something striking that I was reading as well, that Roswell's not even covered in Project Blue Book. There's no research on Roswell. But I'm wondering.
That happened 5 years before Blue Book. That was 47. Blue Book started 52.
52 and ended
69.
69. So, that's Vietnam.
Yeah.
So is this why they started the study? And we know Kennedy sent out that memorandum because he was petrified after the Cuban Missile Crisis that the USSR, the Soviet Union in those times, folks, might consider a preemptive launch if they thought that a UFO coming into their airspace that could not be identified was some kind of sneak attack first attack by the U.S. So they would retaliate. So he sent out this memo. I think it was November 18th, a few days before he was assassinated.
In fact, 10 days. 10 days. It was 10 days before. Yeah. So that would have been, I think, the 22nd. So it was the 12th.
The 12th. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how close that was. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so that tells you it's real, and Nixon even then followed up. Now, originally it was Brezhnev, I think. I don't remember who got the memo, but then Nixon actually had that meeting, and they came to an agreement that they would not fire on, if something's incoming, they would not immediately retaliate. I mean, you almost have to, I think as leaders, before I would retaliate and fire, I'd have to actually know and confirm that a nuclear missile exploded on a city. I don't think you do it when it's 5 miles out. I mean, just because the fact it could be misidentified. And think about it.
The history's there that they have been misidentified very many times.
Can you imagine if one country, would not even retaliate? Because knowing that you're getting hit with 20 or 30, if you retaliated, it's the end of the world. So you almost take it on the chin to be destroyed, to not destroy the rest of the world. That would be quite a thing to do. I don't know if anybody would do that, though.
Geez, I hope we never reach that again. I mean, the Cuban Missile Crisis was so close. I had the wonderful opportunity of interviewing Ted Sorensen, JFK speechwriter. He was the guy that was tasked to write the letter to Khrushchev, and he walked me through that one afternoon in his Manhattan apartment. Folks, we do not want to go through that ever again. Oh, it was unbelievable.
I think we got to get a lot smarter. I think we're very casual right now in this country, thinking we're the big guy, we carry the big stick. And, you had Pearl Harbor, you had 9/11. There's going to be another sneak attack.
course.
And we're completely underestimating Putin. And I think that's where it is right now, as opposed to China. And I've told people, because I'm heavily into the politics and stuff. I think what you see with them, ISIS going into Yemen, they're going to attack Saudi Arabia, and they're going to shut down those oil fields, the pumping station, that island. That's coming because he needs $100 a barrel oil. I know this isn't a political show, but
no, it is. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
we cover all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's going to do that, and I think he'll do it through ISIS, and they will make the attack, and he's going to fund it. But he ain't getting by on $50 a barrel or oil. I can tell you right now. Yeah.
They shut Project Blue Book down, but they continue. It's such a crock. Because they shut down the Warren Commission, and then a few years later they've got the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and then of course the movie JFK comes out, and the UFO thing parallels that almost to a T. Who's investigating these sightings now? There has to be some kind of agency behind the investigations in a post 9/11 year. Anything that is unidentified in the air after what happened on 9/11, somebody's got to be looking at that and saying, okay, what's going on?
They know. They know. I mean, it's just like when we lost Malaysia Flight 370.
Yes.
And I'm saying, so what are you telling me, that China and the United States, who monitors that airspace, don't know where this plane is? They're not saying, because then you'll know where their satellites are at that time. That's the reason they don't say. But they know. They absolutely know. I have VHS tapes of the TV show Sightings, if you remember that, from 20 years ago. Yeah. I got like 16 hours of it. And I'm actually, the last couple of days, I've been watching my old VHS tapes of it. And even back then, in 93 and 94, when that show aired, 92, you got Robert Dean and these other people saying the exact same thing. We monitor everything. Robert Dean said that. We monitor everything. That was 20 years ago. You don't think we monitor it better now? Absolutely. The show is being monitored.
I'm sure, absolutely, keywords and everything else. Now, they came out, when they released the Project Blue Book files, they also said that a lot of the sightings can be accredited to, if you will, the U-2 flights and spycraft and things of that nature. Do you swallow any of that? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I give them 20, 30% of the high-flying ones. You got to realize the U-2, they had 20 U-2s, right? And they flew at 60,000 feet. And I'll tell you, as a MUFON multi-state director, because I have 6 states, I could care less about something, a light in the sky that's moving fast. I could care less about that. I'm at the point now where I want to see the cases where you have, there's a helicopter right over the house right now.
Get out.
Yeah, I hear it. That my dog is barking. There's a helicopter right over the house.
Homeland Security.
You could probably hear it. You hear the rudder, the propeller? Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Do they monitor?
What was I just saying? I just lost.
Well, we were just talking about monitoring, that they monitor everything. Have you been approached by quote unquote men in black? I don't know how else to phrase it, but
no, the only thing that's ever happened was when I wrote my first book. I can hear it. It's right above me here. When I wrote my first book on end time prophecies and the Mayan calendar and all of that, I did I think five times I did radio shows talking about 2012, and it was when I talked about Yellowstone, the supervolcano.
Yeah.
Twice, 3 times the show went off the air. 2 other times I was on the Kevin Smith show, so maybe he had a stronger reception because it was a bigger show. And he called me afterwards when we were done, and he said, "John, somebody was trying to take the reception down." I could still hear that helicopter above the house. That's the first time. I've had helicopters fly over before. That thing is still there. That is incredible. My neighbor sent me an email just before I got on the show, and she said, "Did anything happen last night at 10:30?" She said there was a huge bang, and I said, "Yeah, my dog." I had just gone to bed at 10:30, and my dog was gone crazy. I have a 108-pound Doberman, and he started barking at the front door. The motion lights, I have cameras and motion lights, they didn't come on, so I figured there's nothing there. But something happened at 10:30 last night because the neighbor was concerned. And here you got this helicopter. It was hovering there for how long? 3 to 5 minutes that we were talking. It just left.
So there's something to it. There's something to it. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Folks, we're speaking with John Ventre and others, apparently.
Yeah. Okay, listen. Well, let me tell you something, too.
Welcome all who are joining us on the air and off the air, if you will, because John just had something eerie happen. We had a helicopter hovering over his house as we discuss Project Blue Book, the files that have just been released, of course, on January 12th. And we're talking about things, national security things. We're talking about governments. We're talking about documents. We're talking about all things that are hidden. And, geez, all of a sudden, and apparently they're very interested, it sounds like. Very, very interested. So, folks, www.nightfrightshow.com. Just go to our website. John has a book out that I have neglected to mention. It's called An Alternative History of Mankind. And he has several others out and those links for his books. Are they still up there, John?
Yeah, they just came back. The dog's barking, and they just flew back over the house again.
Who's monitoring things right now in a post-9/11 world? www.nightfrightshow.com. As I said, John's coordinates will be there. He's the MUFON director. You said 6 states. I had you down for 1, Pennsylvania. Don Dundary, our mutual friend from Montreal, my buddy from Montreal, where I grew up, actually. I went to McGill. Got me in contact with you, and I thank him for that. So what states are you MUFON director of?
Yeah, I have Pennsylvania, Delaware, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Maine.
Wow. Is there? Yeah. I got to ask you this because I'm very curious. Vermont, I grew up in Montreal.
Yeah.
There seemed to be an abundance of sightings in Vermont. Is that a fact, or was that just something because I was in close proximity that we would get these reports?
No, we get them up there. I would say we get about 50 cases a year up there. I get about 350 here in Pennsylvania, but there's about 50 in Vermont, 50 in New Hampshire. And the thing with those cases, those are the weirdest. Those cases, to me, a lot of them are paranormal. I get some stuff that I said, this here is demonic. This is paranormal. I had this one lady call me from New Hampshire, it might have been Vermont, saying, John, there is something outside. I did something like she lives on a farm. She says there's a laser light coming through her windows. She said her boyfriend, she got afraid. She called her boyfriend. He came over. He went to open the gate. There was something crouched down at the gate. It stood up, was like 8 feet tall, and she saw it run through the cornfield like at 30 miles an hour. And they were petrified. And I'm saying to myself, I get cases out of that area that, to me, these cases are maybe paranormal or demonic.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it could be a Bigfoot or something. I don't know.
I don't know what that was, but a lot of the cases up there, to me, are very, very strange, But I think that was my neighbor just calling. My cell phone went off. I think she's concerned that there's a helicopter flying above us. It's unbelievable.
You've got quite a reputation, John. Maybe that's why.
I did 3 TV shows now, so the name is getting out there. And I say a lot of the controversial stuff that I know a lot of the people, in MUFON and others are a little kind of afraid to say things about the CIA and that type of stuff. And I call it the way I see it based on my research. They've covered this up, but they've done it in some perverted sort of way. They do this to protect us. Mm-hmm. They're not doing it to get supernatural powers. They do this to protect the country. I'm convinced of that. That's their goal, protect the country at all costs. That's what they're doing. So we probably should sleep good at night knowing they're doing this, but they'll do anything to protect, the state.
How far do you think they'd go, John, to protect the state?
I just recently, I think they would kill, they would do anything. They've done that. But I recently, was talking with Nick Redfern and read his
Sure.
book.
Yeah.
Have you ever read his book, Final Events, or had him speak about that?
Well, I had him on the show, actually. He was wonderful. He was a great guy.
Yeah. Well, I've been suspecting, I know there's a lot of crossover and misidentification, but from my years of doing this, I've been suspecting that there's some misidentification of paranormal activity, especially with the abductions and when somebody's in the house and you hear footsteps and different things and they think they see an ET or maybe they saw something else, a shadow man. So I read his book and he is really interesting. I'm actually trying to find out now and do some of my own research. He said that back then, before Blue Book, prior to Blue Book, when the CIA came into existence, or was the OSS at that time, they were looking at, they had a group that was not really part of the CIA, but was funded by them, called the Collins Elite. And they were looking into devil worship, satanic rituals, and stuff like that. And they started off with Aleister Crowley, and then Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, that whole group, Ray Bradbury, but it was really Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley who supposedly summoned up a demonic spirit, a person who looked just like a gray, big head. It looked exactly like the gray. It was called Lamb, was the person's name, but it was satanic. It was a demon, and they actually summoned it up. And so this is, talks about the CIA and stuff. So they have this group called the Collins Elite who are trying to control Satan and demons. And that's the whole remote viewing and all of that. They believe if they can cut a deal with the devil, that they can utilize some of these powers and then target Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Putin, Saddam Hussein, that stuff. That's why we were doing the remote viewing, the mind control in the 60s, MK Ultra. I never knew of this Collins Elite group who are still in place today. And they've actually lost some agents who had to drop out because they became physically ill in dealing with this paranormal and occult stuff. Once they quit the group, they were okay afterwards. Because you can't get in bed with the devil. You're gonna lose.
Yeah, at one point you're gonna get the F word. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
he's gonna F you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, unless you're Jesus or one of the archangels and stuff, a human being cannot take this on, But they think they can, and this is absolutely intriguing because now my mind's racing, and I'm saying to myself, human abductions. Is it ET abduction? Is it demonic? Cattle mutilations. Are they taking these organs and the blood and everything for satanic rituals? It's actually the black helicopters. See, I always thought the black helicopters were UFOs. The ETs built a helicopter. Wouldn't be hard to do. They're flying it, and they could be flying. That could have been the helicopter over my house was ETs, not the National Guard. All I know, it's a helicopter. Okay, we have helicopters. It's got to be one of our guys. I always thought those black helicopters belonged to the ETs because there were no markings. They was theirs. It wasn't a paramilitary group. But
do you think there's a parallel society going on right amongst us?
Well,
that they're here
that way. Or there is this group of this paramilitary and stuff that's working on this. But what if they've cut a deal and it's all part of this trying to control demonic powers and they want sacrifices and rituals, and that's why they take the cattle mutilations. I mean, the abductions, the whole part, that whole end of it would be trying to get people to believe in UFOs, to believe in advanced technology, that they're going to come and save us with technology, with medical cures, with free energy, and we will, they will start worshiping the ET, and there'll be a new religion, all to take us away from Jesus, because the end days are coming. The end of days are going to come. Rapture is going to come. All of that is going to happen.
What are some of the signs you're seeing behind that, John? Is there something in specific that stands out? I know the world's in a horrible mess like we've never seen before. Is there
Well,
something in your own mind that focuses you in on that?
Well, in my mind, yeah, because I've had paranormal activity since 1989.
Okay.
I turned down a transfer at UPS to Europe, believe it or not. We were going to live in Madrid and then London. My wife wouldn't go. So I turned down a huge promotion and transfer to be head of security for Europe, basically for UPS. And I ended up getting transferred to Oklahoma City instead, kind of a punishment because I turned down Madrid. And once we went there, it's almost like the movie Poltergeist. I read in the paper, they found an Indian burial ground where they put this housing development. My house was brand new. It was the first new house I ever bought. It was kind of $148,000. It was a cheap new house because that's the price in Oklahoma.
But congratulations for doing
it was
that.
cool. I was like, 30 years old. I got a brand new house. And, but that's when the paranormal stuff started. The footsteps, I heard voices. And when we moved 2 years later to New Jersey, I don't know if they attached to you. That house I put up against the Amityville Horror. I put that house I lived in. What happened there was absolutely demonic. I mean, we saw myself, my sister, relatives, black clouds moving across the ceiling a couple of times. People would say, I hear a baby crying in a rocking chair in the other room. My son would lay down to sleep and he would tell me, Dad, something's in the wall saying I'm going to get you. Banging footsteps. When I moved into the house, all the boxes are in the garage. And I invite my parents over from Long Island and everybody's there in the den where the garage door goes in from the den to the garage. And we hear the boxes sliding around the floor. You know what a heavy box on cement sounds like. Shh. You know exactly. And my father says, what is that? I said, Dad, I don't know. I said, since we moved in, the boxes slide around the garage floor. And, then my wife went I don't want to say she went crazy, but I used to kid around and say, I think this woman's possessed. She became a 180-degree, totally different person. We ended up getting divorced. I look at it now and I say, there was a spirit that attached to her. She was a nice person. And it was like I used to say, I don't know who this person is. I don't understand what's going on here. We ended up getting divorced and everything, but it didn't stop there. That house was unbelievably, incredibly evil, And so I moved here to Pennsylvania, and I sooner move in here, and there's this constant tapping in the wall, And I would get up at night, and it was always in the spare bedroom, just like in the other house. And I put my ear to the wall, and it'd be like this tapping in the wall. And I hit the wall, it would stop. I'd go to bed, it would start again. And but what the thing that concerned me, and then I've had some other things happen. One night I woke up and there was somebody standing down the hallway, and the attic where my bed is, I can see right down the hallway, and that door goes up to the attic. And in the summer, I always open it because there's skylights and cool air comes down. I wake up. There's somebody standing, and I'm awake. I'm saying to myself, I'm looking. There's somebody standing there, and it looked like that creature from District 9. Tiny little waist, long arms and legs. It had to be 7 feet tall. It was right up to the door frame. It had a square head like it was wearing a helmet, and it was standing there frozen, and it was backlit. Like the attic light was on, And I'm looking. I actually crawled to the foot of the bed, and I'm looking, and the guy's standing there looking at me, look, just frozen, standing there. And I'm telling you, this goes on 15 seconds. I'm clearing my eyes. I'm looking. I crawled to the foot of the bed. I'm looking, and I said, you know what? I rolled over, put the light on, gone. And then I turned the light off. The light was gone. Like whatever was backlit. The light had to be on in the attic, or there was a craft above the house shining a light, he's gone. So I lay down. No sooner the light's back, and the light backs away. I have the paper person comes and delivers the newspaper, and I'm in a cul-de-sac. So I see the light, and it comes and turns, and I know what it looks like when they're delivering the paper at 5 a.m. This light gets dimmer and kind of backs away. So that happened. Then there was, I went to my first MUFON symposium in '99 when I moved here in '97, and I had a conversation with a woman at lunchtime that I'm convinced she was a hybrid. She had these bloodshot gray eyes, pale, was albino but not albino looking. And that character is in my book, An Alternative History of Mankind. I put her in that book.
Based on
And,
this woman.
yeah, it was really based on her that she's in my book.
We hear of the aliens that are supposed to be Nordic in origin.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was absolutely. I can't remember. She had like strawberry blonde hair, I think it was, with gray eyes. They were kind of bloodshot, really pale looking. There was something about her. I made sure at lunch when we broke for lunch, I got online behind her. I'm single, so I'm kind of good at that. I get behind the woman I want to talk to. First I look at the left hand, see if there's a ring, and then I get behind them so I can talk to them. So we had lunch together.
So you're telling us more secrets about yourself here.
That's it. It hasn't worked. I'm still single, but the weird thing was, I leave the other thing. Then after lunch we go back. I'm looking for her. She's gone. She's no longer at the conference. She left. So she showed up for about an hour before lunch. I had lunch with her and gone. Never saw her again at the 3-day conference. But then I get home, and it's 4th of July weekend, and I have an out-of-body experience. I'm above my house. I'm looking down. I see the peak of my house. I see my green Grand Cherokee in the driveway where it was, and boom, I'm out. And for the next 5 days or so, I'm having these horrible dreams. There's this kid with this pulled back skin and pointy ears, no hair, and he's poking my dog. My dog is suspended in the air, my Doberman. He was 98 pounds, and the dog's poking him, and I keep saying, stop poking the dog, stop poking the dog. This kid had these Popeye forearms with the elbow bone was sticking out about 2 inches, really like Popeye forearms, no hair. And then I was having dreams of this hairy it creature standing next to the bed. I was waking up at night. I felt something was in the room with me. I don't know if it was E.T. I don't know if it was a demonic encounter. I would wake up swinging my fist because I felt something was there. I hit the head post. I almost broke my wrist. This went on for about 5 days. And then my girlfriend got on the website and she looked up UFOs. And there was a UFO sighting that night in over Penn State College and Morgantown, West Virginia. And my house is in direct line with them. And they were about an hour apart, which would have put it right over my house. And I'm telling you, I don't know if that was an abduction. I don't know if that was demonic. So my mind's going because there's something going on.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Then my daughter comes out. I was on the board of juvenile diabetes. We have the big gala. My son, his fiance, my son has type 1 diabetes. And my daughter, the 4 of us go. We get back. And we go to bed, and then at like 3 in the morning, my daughter bursts into my bedroom. Dad, you're not going to believe what happened. You're not going to believe what happened. I know you're not going to believe me. I said, well, just tell me. It's like 3 in the morning here. We just went to bed at midnight. And she goes, Dad, I went downstairs to get a bottle of water. There wasn't any, so I went to the basement refrigerator. It's where I keep all the spare beverages. So she goes, Dad, I got the bottle of water. Something was standing behind me. She said, I can feel it. The hair on the back of my neck went up. She goes, Dad, there was somebody standing there behind me. She says, I ran upstairs and I laid down in bed. She goes, Dad, I no sooner laid down and the damn thing laid on top of me. And she says, I'm frozen. I can't move. She goes, I feel it entering my body. And she goes, it was painful. She goes, you wouldn't believe how much this hurt. This thing came into me. And she goes, now, Dad, I'm frozen. I can't move. And this isn't one of those where you're sleeping, paralysis. She was awake the whole time. And she says, Dad, it comes in me. I hear all these voices like I'm in a crowded room. She goes, I hear like 50 voices, like spirits or something. She says, it pulls out of me. She says she sits up in bed and says, what just happened? And she laid down, happens again. So now she says she's laying there all these noises in her head. She can move her eyes. She looks in her mirror, and there's a shadow man standing in the doorway, right? It says in her head, it says to whatever's in her, these are the words: when you're done with her, I want to try out the other two, meaning my son and his fiance. Think about the wording. That's why I know she didn't make this up. When you're done with her, I want to try out the other two, like a car. See, this is what these, if it's spirits, that's what they do. When we're sleeping at night, they enter our body so they can feel, we breathe. That's the only time they feel alive. They did it to her, because they were alive at one time, or I don't know if it's demonic. I don't know if it's just ghosts. I don't know if it's an ET. I don't know what it is. But that's when my daughter ran down the hallway. She said she was able to, when it pulled out, she jumped out of bed. She said she ran right at the thing in the doorway. It was gone. She came down my bedroom. So we go down the hall and knock on the door and start telling my son and his fiance. And I'm looking at the fiance, and she's like swaying. She's all clammy and starting to sway. She goes, there's something wrong. She goes, I don't feel good. She said, I got to get out of here. My son and his fiance packed their bags at 4 a.m. and left. They left and they drove back to Virginia. They had to get out of the house. But that's not even the end of it. Then the real thing that happened just recently in June, it was on June 6th, 6/6 of all days. I'm watching a baseball game. I'm a big Detroit Tiger fan and Pittsburgh Pirate, but I'm really a Tiger fan, number one. So,
don't talk to me about Willie Stargell, because I'm an Expos fan. I love Willie Stargell. He hammered us good in the 80s. Anyways, I'm sorry to break the... Yeah.
So I get home, and I go to, again, every night I go upstairs and I open the attic door so the cool air comes in, because anytime it's going to be under 70, I don't use the air. I let the cool air come in the house. I walk past the spare bedroom and spare bathroom in the hallway, and I said, what is that smell? And the dog's standing right next to me. I looked at him and I said, did you take a dump in the bathroom? That's what it smelled like. I go in there, and I said, this is hard. I turned the faucets on, the shower, and and I put the fan on, but it smelled, as I stood there, it smelled like rotting flesh, like a dead animal, and feces. It was the worst damn thing you ever wanted to smell. So I put the fan on, I closed the bathroom door, I go downstairs to watch the baseball game. It was
only got a minute, John.
Okay, so what happens is there's this big bang on the wall. The picture flips up an inch. I got other things blow to the side. I go upstairs. The bathroom still stinks after 3 hours of having the fan on. Again, I go to the bed. My dog goes crazy at the attic stairs like he sees something. And again, boom, biggest bang you ever heard. That's what got me really scared and looking into whether this is demonic or ET.
John Ventre is our guest tonight, folks. He's just relayed some incredible personal stories. He's coming on because he's the MUFON director of 6 different states. And I thought we were going to be telling mostly MUFON stories and things of that nature. But this is Night Fright, baby. We go anywhere.
Well, when we come back, let's talk a little bit about what this may be.
Right on. Okay. So, folks, if you're just joining us, John Ventre, www.nightfrightshow.com. The book is called An Alternative History of Mankind. We'll be getting to that in the second hour. And if you're just watching this on YouTube and on television, there will be a part 2 to this without question. No question at all. You're looking at part 1 right now. Just go to the www.nightfrightshow.com website. All the connections for all the books and John's connections as well for MUFON will be there. I am Brent Holland from Night Fright. Stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes. See you next time.
You're listening to Night Fright and your host, Brent Holland. The time is now. Your voice on the web for paranormal and conspiracy.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com. JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.